Hey up, it's Klye here. You don't often think of the Metal Gear Solid series when you think about eerie or spooky games, which makes sense because you're always playing as a highly skilled soldier, so if anyone's going to be scared, it's going to be the people that come into contact with the protagonist. But that doesn't mean that the games are completely devoid of weird or unsettling places. Now, some of these are probably going to be very personal to me and very specific, but you can let me know if you feel the same, or maybe if you have any other places that you found to be a little bit weird. I like weird stuff. Now, the first place is a very obvious one, I think, but it's a good start. Nzoia Badiabulu, the Devil's House. This is in Metal Gear Solid V in Africa. You only ever come here once, and it's during Mission 20, Voices. The whole mission has like a really eerie feel to it. Before we even get to Diablo's domicile, the mission's full of horror cliches. The bridge is broken, and the whole area down here is covered in mist all the time. This mist never goes away. It's very Silent Hill-esque, which is very intentional. Although, that does make me wonder what kind of demons the MGS characters would see in Silent Hill. I'm not sure if Silent Hill could handle a lot of the Metal Gear Solid characters, to be honest. The only access to Satan's shack is by walking through a tunnel. But before we go through there, there's a tent just outside of the entrance. And if you go into this tent, you can hear the broadcast from PT. PT, of course, being the playable teaser for Silent Hills, the game that never came to be. Although, I do still have it on my PS4, so I can play it whenever I like, which I don't do because it scares the poo out of my bum. Anyway, the broadcast coming from this radio is absolutely horrifying.
Guess what? I will be coming back. I'm bringing my new toy with me. Dan was such a drag. Every day he was the same. Dressed the same, sit in front of the same kind of game. Yeah, it was just that kind of stuff. Then one day he goes and kills us all.
I've always found this tunnel to be really strange as well. None of the buddies will come in here. You can whistle for them as much as you like, but nobody will enter this tunnel. If you go into the tunnel and whistle for your buddies, they'll just teleport past you and go to the other side. I've always wondered why that is. Why do no buddies go into this tunnel? And inside the tunnel itself, you can start to hear some ambient music and the howl of the wind. Once we cross the threshold, the sounds from the cave stop, and so does the music. All we hear from now on are the sounds of the crows and the occasional burst of gunfire. Now that we're at Beelzebub's bungalow, let's take a look around. This area is completely isolated from the rest of the map, and it looks abandoned, from the outside at least anyway. As I say, you only ever come here one time. If you come here before Mission 20, you can still explore the outside, but the door to the house itself is boarded up. And regardless of what happens next, after this mission, this area is completely unavailable. Unless you do a mission replay, of course. But it's an interesting little place. It's very quiet, very isolated. I quite like it. You can look around this place for ages and find small little details that make the place feel like it was actually once real and had a function. It's not just a random bit of the map with assets thrown in. The things in here are unique to this area. Mostly. Now this is a bit of a side note, but I believe this is the only place in the whole game with a gate that's big enough to drive a car through. Every other gate in the game is too small. No cars can fit through. But this one specific gate here is just big enough to fit a car through. I don't know why, but I find that very interesting. The red smears all over the place and the bags laying around on the machinery are quite interesting as well. But I think these bags are just full of liquid, because if you shoot them, they wiggle and release some kind of clear fluid. My favourite place in this area is upstairs in the work shed. There's some fuel resources up here as well, so it's worth coming up here. All things considered, it's quite a cosy little spot. I like to sit up here and smoke some wormwood space meth. But let's go and take a look inside Lucifer's lodge. The red smears leading into the place don't bode particularly well, and once you get inside, you can start to hear things coming from deeper inside the building. And the bags on the inside aren't as stationary as the ones on the outside. Further in, we can see what looks like a makeshift infirmary. But the curtains obscure all the details, so we're going to need to part these curtains and see what's actually going on in the devil's house. And it turns out that this is a place for human experimentation. The people in here have earphones inserted into their bodies to train the parasites that they've been given. These parasites activate on words. Once the parasite knows the language, anyone who speaks that language will die and spread the infection to everyone around them. And this place is rammed full of people who are being given that very treatment. And now you know why the mission's called Voices. And to cap it all off, a floating ginger child teleports in a perpetually immolated man who died 20 years ago, and he sets the building on fire. Which is just classic Metal Gear. But this is something that everyone's experienced who's played MGSV. I mean, it's a main mission, so everyone's played this. It doesn't stop it from being Metal Gear Eerie though, does it? So these next ones are going to be a lot more personal to me. In MGS1, right at the start of the game, when you first swim into Shadow Moses, you can go back into the dock and have a little run around. And this place always freaks me out. Standing in a black void and the liquid combined with the PS1's wibbly wobbly graphics, everything just seems to undulate. This kind of effect always sets off my motion sickness, and it's also really easy to trick yourself into thinking that you're seeing something moving in the distance. Me personally, I can't look at this for very long because it turns my stomach watching the world just wiggle like this. And given the fact that the floor is just completely black, and you know that someone or something could easily swim out from that little cave over there. I mean, Snake just swam in through here, so who's to say that something else couldn't be following us? I always get the feeling that if I look out here for too long, I'm gonna see something. Ugh, gives me the willy jeebies. I get a similar feeling in Metal Gear Solid 2, but this one's even worse. Right at the start of the plant chapter, you start the mission via a moon pool, also known by some people as a wet porch, which I think are great names for something else. But anyway, speaking of wet, you can get back into the moon pool and have a swim. And this is supposed to be a safe place for you to learn about the swimming mechanic and get you familiar with the controls. But for me, this is where the problem starts. It's so hard to tell what's going on down here because of all the bubbles and the shadows. There's also an invisible floor that stops you from going too deep, so you're always being pushed away by some invisible force. Even worse is if you go into first person. You get to see the world through Raiden's mask, which makes it even harder to discern what's going on down here. You know that this moon pool goes down much deeper, but you just can't see anything. As good as the graphics are, to me this is almost completely incomprehensible. It gives me a very funny feeling in my tum-tum. The fact that you can barely see and you're underwater in a place that's connected to the open ocean, it gives your imagination plenty of chance to make this area incredibly freaky. All these weird blobs and shadows and bubbles and lights moving around, it definitely makes me feel like there's something down here. I always imagined that there was like a shark down here or something that would come up if you swam around for too long. Or maybe if you looked down, something had come up from the depths and try and grab you. One of my worst fears is just looking out into darkness and seeing something emerge from it. Or even just the idea of it. Have you ever seen those thalassophobia videos? Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, that kind of stuff freaks me out. Although in Metal Gear Solid 2 we're completely safe. There's nothing in the moon pool, so don't worry. It's purely just a fear of the unknown and the restricted vision. Although, if anything was to come after you in this area, it would probably be wearing one of these diving suits. Imagine one of these things diving into the pool after you. Speaking of things appearing out of nowhere and scaring the plop out of your Aris, during the first half of Act 3 in Metal Gear Solid 4, you take on the role of a very seedy looking man who's going out snatching. We have to follow a member of the Resistance and make sure he gets to the secret base during military curfew. It's basically just one big tailing mission, but this guy isn't the only person being followed. In certain areas, if we look behind us, we can see something peering out and watching us. If you use the solid eye, you can zoom in and see that it's clearly a humanoid shape, although not quite human. If we go in for a closer look, then they hide and completely disappear. They don't run away, they just poof out of existence. And it's very easy to miss this when you play the game because you don't really have any reason to turn around and look behind you, since you're supposed to be following someone else. This is a fairly well-known thing in Metal Gear Solid 4, but I can imagine that a lot of people have played through this game focusing on the mission and never realised that the entire time they're being followed. And this is what makes me wonder if we're being followed by anyone else. In terms of the story, we're being followed quite often by people we can't see throughout all of the games. So maybe, somewhere out there's someone watching us, just out of sight. It definitely makes this mission creepy when you know that you're being followed the entire time. Even if it is just some robots trying to sneak into an adult movie. I'm not very good at this whole spooky thing, am I? The last area for today is in Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake. And this one is very, very personal. I'm sure that nobody else finds this room weird, but I do, so I'm going to tell you about it. On the 4th floor of the main building, there's a room that's just pitch black, but you can still see Snake and the little girl. To me, there's just something so weird about an area that's completely devoid of light, but where you can still see the characters clearly. This kind of thing really messes with my perception and gets the old imagination going. I really don't like it. It's why I struggle to fight the 4 kings in Dark Souls. Just something about this very specific situation just stops my brain from working. And why is that little girl walking back and forth in a pitch black room? What is she doing in here? And even worse is that this room has instant kill traps right next to where the girl's walking. You know, if this was a real place, she could easily fall down here and just instantly die. Now, you can get night vision goggles that reveal the room, but that's not very fun, is it? And it still doesn't shine any light on why there's a random little girl in here, of all places. I don't know, I just find this one room so bizarre. There's nothing here. It's just a room you can't see and a kid walking back and forth in the void until the end of time. And all she talks about are decoy soldiers, which is a good tip for the next few rooms, and it is good to know that she's not in distress, but I don't know, I still don't like it. As I say, very, very specific to me and my own particular fears, but any game with a black void where you can still see the characters, or just a wide open expanse, it just gives me far too much room to imagine stuff, and I don't like it. You know, I think it all started from that PS1 demo disc where that T-Rex comes walking out of the darkness and towards you. Yeah, even to this day, that thing still scares me. But enough therapy, that's all I've got for today. There's a few more places I find scary, but I'll save that for next time if anyone's interested. I'd love to know what places you find spooky and what your particular fears are when it comes to this kind of thing. In the MGS games or in other games, I don't mind. This is an interesting thing to me because it's all very personal. Pretty much every game in existence has something about it that someone's going to find strange. And even better is when it's not intentional. All these weird things are usually just your imagination, but you never know. Ghosts are canon in the Metal Gear series, so who's to say that there's not a phantom behind you, hiding just out of sight? You never know. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Please do leave a like if you like, and subscribe if you want to, and as always, take care.